Good evening. We're about to begin this meeting of the Sumner County Board of Education for November the 14th. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone who would like to join me, please feel free to do so.
They can't hear.
Is
it on?
All right, it's on. They've arisen. Moment of silence. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I guess it's working. All right. Can we call the meeting to order? Got the roll, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, sir.
I think Mr. Daniels is going to be out because of work. He's out of the state, I think. Out of the country on a missions trip. Okay. Well, he let me know he wasn't going to be here anyway. First item on the agenda is adoption of the regular agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion approved.
Motion approved, Mr. Lancaster. Second by Ms. Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a
Motion to approve.
Motion approved, Mr. Lancaster.
Second.
Second by Mr. King. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, consideration of the minutes of the October 24th, 2023 regular meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Ms. Andrews, second by Ms. Hawkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, recognition and hearing of delegations, recognition of Liberty Creek Middle School cross-country team. Who's coming down for that? Oh, you got it? Miss Andrews has it.
If I could have the members of the middle school cross-country team join me. And coaches, you're welcome to join as well. Just right here, would be great. So tonight we want to recognize the Liberty Creek Middle School cross-country team. They are our state TMSAA winners. And then we also want to recognize Gracie Ray. She is the sole state winner for that. Gracie, if you'll step forward. So they, in addition to winning state, they won the Saturday Light Fever race, Green Hill Invitational race, Memphis Twilight Classic. They are Sumner County champions, sectional champions, and then, as I said, TMSAA state champions. The middle school race is a 2-mile race, and the girls' times are as follows. Gracie Ray ran in 12 minutes and 29 seconds. Chatty Enapure ran in 12 minutes and 53 seconds. Campbell Holt was 13 minutes, 23 seconds.38 minutes, 32 seconds. Lila Hillis was 14 minutes, 15 seconds. Ava Samperi, 14 minutes, 38 seconds, excuse me. And Bryn Taylor, 14 minutes, 52 seconds. And then we have Daryl Bridges and Scott Rebecca. And then we will be giving you a challenge coin. We instituted challenge coins at the board a couple of years ago, I guess it was. And the challenge coin is just a symbol of membership, belonging, and camaraderie for forging a strong bond among those who possess it. So on behalf of Sumner County School Board, we want to say thank you and congratulations.
Well done, ladies.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. That's it.
Yes, you are. Yes. Then I'd also like to call up Sydney Tackett for Liberty Creek High School. Sydney, I'll try not to embarrass you. Sydney is our TSSAA Division I class single double A, it's a combined class, state champion. She is also our region champion. Sydney has been an impressive runner that I've had the opportunity to watch. I don't know that you realize I've watched you grow up. And not only is she an incredible runner, she's also an incredible teammate, not only to her team, but also to the beach team. As I said, she may be wearing Wolves, she may be wearing red and blue, but underneath it, she still says Go Bucks and wears orange and blue. and the Buccaneers, we still support you and love you. So I had the pictures to prove it. Congratulations, Sydney. Thank you for representing us well. That's right. Yeah. Where's your Sydney? Come on. One Sandra. But the high school race is a true 5K, and Sydney ran that in 18 minutes and 26 seconds.
Wow. Wow.
All right, congratulations, y'all. That's great. Next item on the agenda is still hearing of delegations. Hearing from our public. First one to come up is Sarah Squires. Sarah, come on up. Give your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak on an agenda item.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Squires. I live at 134 Chesapeake Harbor Boulevard, Hendersonville, Tennessee, 37065. And I'm here to talk about the library policy for 1 second. I do want you guys to consider one thing that was not in the policy. And I'm reading the state textbook policy as well. It says any employee, student, parent, or guardian may appeal a determination made by the student's or employee's local board of education or public charter school governing body that the materials in the student's or employee school library collection are inappropriate for the age maturity level of the students, et cetera, et cetera. In the event that a book is removed by a committee, I would like for you guys to consider having the ability of a parent of that school to challenge that removal, to be able to bring it to the board either way. If the book is removed, given a parent in the school the opportunity to have you hear it as a board, or if it's kept and there's someone who wants to object, that they also, right now the way it's written, it's only if the book is kept that a parent can appeal and bring it to the board. But if I'm if my school removes a book that my child relates to or something like that, I would like the opportunity to have you as the board hear it. I hope that makes sense. Because I feel like you guys, the schools have done a great job of assembling committees that are, representative of the school. But in the event that those committees' dynamics start to change, or the principal or librarian selects, anything could happen. At my school, I would like the ability, if a book is removed, to challenge the removal and have you as a board hear it. And I think the state policy would also reflect that. So just something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Squires. Next is Linda Huey. Ms. Huey, come on down, give your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak on an agenda item.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Linda Huey. My address is 201 Bahia Mar Point, Hendersonville, Tennessee. I am a retired teacher serving many years in the Sumner County school system. I currently serve as a substitute teacher. Once a teacher, one does not forget their calling. As a teacher, mother of a son who graduated from Sumner County school system, active in my community, a taxpayer, and a Christian, I feel that I have a duty to address this board on the agenda item of library materials. A school library is a most valuable resource for our students in Sumner County. Librarians have a tremendous responsibility in curating books that not only supplement learning objectives of our students and are consistent with educational mission of Sumner County schools, but meet the standard of age appropriateness and maturity level. As such, these materials must be in compliance with federal statutes and Tennessee code. I question the following of these guidelines. I have read the reports of the book challenges from different schools. They were inconsistent and lacking informed information. This review process does not seem to be viewed with the gravity that it demands. I implore each of you, as elected representatives of the stakeholders of Sumner County, who fund our schools with 75 to 80% of our property tax dollars, to take your position of representation with the utmost sincerity. Follow the mantra, do no harm. Keep these words inscribed in your heart as you make decisions that affect our children. From Luke chapter 17, verse 2, from the New King James Version. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea than that he should offend one of these little ones. You are all accountable to the stakeholders of Sumner County. We are all accountable to our Creator for the actions and non-actions. In closing, I would like to offer my time and expertise as a former teacher to serve on any book review committee. Thank you for your time and attention. I trust that righteousness prevails and that you will all make informed decisions for which you will be held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Huey. Next. What's he?
It logged me off and I.
You got logged off somehow?
And it won't let me log back in, sorry.
All right, next item on the agenda is executive session. We do not have an executive session tonight, so the next item is reports from the director. Dr. Lang.
All right, so I'm going to give a brief update on some things related to capital. Obviously, we shared earlier during the board retreat, we shared principal strategic planning capital requests. We also talked about some of the big projects that we've done and ones that are upcoming. I wanted to talk about a couple of the ones that are on the agenda tonight. We moved 3 to the regular agenda. I think it's important for us, you know, we have that long list of consent agenda items for bids and purchases, and that includes everything from copier leases to paper to different things like that. Some of these items are really big, and I think it does well for us to look at them and at least make note of what they are, and then track them for when they're to make sure they're getting completed correctly. And so I wanted to highlight 3 of those that are on your agenda tonight. The GHS, they call it the little gym. It's a remnant of years past, right? And they have always wanted this gym to be air conditioned. They use it for testing, for a lot of other purposes, and so it's vital to what they're doing at Gallatin High School. It's also, you know, we had it engineered and stamped, and it's very doable for us to do. I think it's a high priority for Gallatin High School. It helps Gallatin High School a lot, and so my recommendation is to approve that. If you go to Portland West Middle School, when that school was built, there's about a 10 or 12 foot gap between the awning at the front of the school and the end of the sidewalk. So if it's pouring down rain or inclement weather, you got a nice 10 to 12 foot run to go from the building to the car without getting wet. So they had requested for their drop off and everything to have an awning extending over that sidewalk. It's about 100 feet of 10-foot awning, but it makes it where they can do all their bus dismissal when it's raining outside without the kids getting wet, teachers getting wet. It's very affordable, so that's also recommended for tonight. And then the biggest news, last month we pulled BHS Annex because Mr. Brown had met with some HVAC companies, and they thought they could re-engineer and get us a better product. So this is engineered, stamped for the HVAC work at the Beach High School Annex, and it came in about $200,000 cheaper than what we thought it was going to be. So I think it helped us to wait 3 weeks to do that. And so I would also highly recommend that we take care of this HVAC work at the Beach Annex. All right, I wanted to give you a stadium update. You know, obviously we're very thankful, as we mentioned at the study session, that the $15.8 million was approved to be moved from reserve into our capital and maintenance accounts. So we're very thankful for that. Thankful to the County Commission for allowing us to do that. I want to give you a little bit of an update. So there are going to be parts over the next 10 months, 8 months, where we're going to go really fast, and then we're going to go slow, and then we're going to go fast. The demo is going to go pretty fast. It took 1 minute and 4 seconds for the Beach High School home side to come down today. So the Beach High School home side is down. The Portland home side is down. Probably by midday tomorrow or Thursday, all the debris will be gone from the Beach High School home side. It may take a little longer because the temporary bleachers are there, so they have some obstacles to work around. It may take them a little longer to get that debris out. But regardless to say, those two are gone. We have on the agenda tonight Hendersonville High School home side. For demo, it's the same company that's done Portland Beach and the visitor side on Hendersonville. So that's on the agenda for tonight. Hendersonville has already begun the prep. You may have gotten some phone calls over the weekend. Unfortunately, Hendersonville took a little bit of the double punch. They lost a heartbreaking playoff game on Friday night at Henry County. And then, you know, as we've said all along, stadiums are more than just cement and steel. Stadiums reflect the hopes and aspirations and blood, sweat, and tears of generations of communities. And I think Hendersonville over the weekend felt the sting of losing a playoff game that, you know, they probably should have won. There were some questionable placements of the ball on the goal line. But anyway, you know, so we extended a little bit. We won't start any of the actual preparation for the demo until Thursday. A lot of the kids want to get their pictures taken in front of the commando sign and everything like that. So we were able to jiggle some things around to get that taken care of. But so that's on the agenda for tonight. So after the demo is done, geotech reports should be in this week, either this week or the first of next week. All right, that allows the civil site work has already begun at Portland Beach and Hendersonville. There's a lot of civil site work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done on the architectural side to get the bid ready. We're looking at late January to issue the bids, right? Because these documents will be hundreds of pages. They are working with steel companies to get in the queue to get steel fabricated. So, you know, some of that may come sooner, okay? But we want to bid these jobs. There were some questions because Portland's ready to roll. The home site's been demoed. Do we gain anything if we bid Portland first? By the time we put all the bids together, you're roughly talking about a 2-week window on either side, and we think we'll do a lot better by bidding all three together. That bid will be a massive bid project, but it'll have the opportunity to look at each individual school separately. So a company could bid one, or they can bid all of them. If you put all of them together, you get the opportunity to get larger contractors that usually can get pricing better, and you get a little bit of an economy of scale on those projects. But we may have 3 separate companies bid 3 different projects. We may have one company bid Hendersonville and Beach, and somebody else bid Portland, but it gives us the maximum ability to maximize our money on those projects. The tracks are a little easier for us to bid. There's not as much work in those tracks, but we'll probably push those a little bit. You know, like Station Camp, we can use that track in the spring. The football stadiums have to take the highest priority. A lot of the work, site work, has already been done on the tracks, so we'll be able to roll those. I would look for probably, if we roll the stadiums in January, we'll probably roll the bids on the tracks maybe probably March. You know, and that'll give us, realistically, if we bid it today, you know, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of site work on the ground done during December, January, February, because it's messy and contractors prefer working after that. So that's kind of where we are on phase one. The architects are meeting with school teams. You know, the biggest push is going to be to get the steel fabricated for the bleachers. There's more time on what goes underneath each of the bleachers. So these are, if you've been to Liberty Creek, these are massive structures. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to solve problems. I've told the schools that my #1 priority is that there's athletic trainer space under each of those bleachers. Other than that, the school communities are going to have some say on exactly what they want. Like, for instance, at Beach High School, the home locker room is right there by the stadium. They're probably not going to put a home locker room underneath the bleachers because it doesn't save any time or space. It's the same distance to walk around the bleachers as it is to walk up from the building. But Hendersonville, Portland will have a little bit different needs, and so we'll work through some of that over the next few weeks with the architect, with the school teams, with the principal, coaches, some of the community members, the teams that really are instrumental, the stakeholders in that local community. So again, just a reminder, once all that's done, we'll receive, each of those projects will have to be approved individually by the school board. So I would expect that on our February meeting. And then from February to July 31st will be rock and roll. There will be a lot of work done quickly. So there'll be a real quick thrust here with finishing off the demo, and then there'll be a little bit of time where we get the final preparations and get the bid documents right, and we get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and then we'll roll through construction. And hopefully, you know, the steel industry will be kind and we'll get everything turned around before football season. But that's really the updates I have on athletic facilities and capital, unless anybody has any questions.
Are you gonna do it or not? He's got his finger on the button, so.
I'm ready to go next item.
Okay. All right, no questions then. Thank you, Dr. Langford. Next item on the agenda is under new business, discussion and interaction regarding bids for Sumner County capital projects. Is there a motion? Motion approved by Ms. Andrews, second by Mr. Lancaster. Any discussion? Ms. Andrews.
I just want to say I spoke with Mr. Brown about Beach High School Annex. So just want to make it on the record that in the documents it says for the materials there's a lead time of 10 to 12 weeks. That would put us at the earliest spring break, but speaking with Mr. Brown, because of how intrusive it is as far as what's going to be happening with installing that new HVAC in the classrooms and what all is going to be with that project will most likely not start till May when students are out of the building. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that we approve it tonight, but the work is not going to start until after students are out of the building. So it's not that we're being negligent on that. It's just that's going to be by the time we get materials and so forth, what's in the best interest of students.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. All right. Seeing no other lights on, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction regarding bids for the demolition of Hendersonville High School home bleachers. Is there a motion? Motion approved by Mr. Lancaster, second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding district calendar for school year 2023 to 2024. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve #1.
Second.
Approved by #1, second by Ms. Andrews. Any discussion? Seeing none, all, Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, I do want to make a discussion on the calendar. I will say, I do think that there's some confusion just from conversations that I had. As many are aware, I did send out an unofficial survey, and it did come back a lot of people saying that they liked calendar number 2. However, when I had conversations with people, they were still saying, you know, I don't understand this, like it's still confusing. So when I would explain it more in, you know, in depth, and they go, oh, okay, I understand. Yes, calendar 1 is better. So I don't know if there's plans to continue to communicate, because what I think, just like anything, whenever there's change, the natural inclination is that you want to stay with what is familiar, and I feel like calendar 2 for a lot of people felt more familiar, but I also feel like that once we were, if we were to adopt that calendar and walk through it, I don't think in reality most people would like that calendar. It has, you know, especially when you start looking at when we come back in January, but I do think that it's the drive days that are confusing, and then those instructional focus days. And so I think that we kind of have to get that calendar under our belt for a year and people to kind of walk through it. And then I think there will be better reception to it. So I just want to say that I am aware of those results, but then having the conversations and then I spoke to a couple of people that were on the calendar committee, and they shared some more in-depth discussions that they had within their committee, and feel very strongly that calendar 1 is the best option.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Ms. Andrews said, I don't think there's a ton of difference in 1 and 2. The main thing is calendar 1 was the one the committee recommended, so I don't really want to necessarily go against them unless I have a compelling reason to. That calendar would also, I think if we had have gone with it or did decide to go with it, we would, you know, want to amend to make that January 3rd day the flex day. But this thing looks awesome.
Yeah.
So,
Because this is like the most simple, you know, as a dumb parent like myself, I just need to know when they go, when they don't go. And that's what we got.
That's a sample student-only calendar made from Preference 1, just so you could see what that would look like. And to speak to Mrs. Andrews' comment earlier, Dr. Yon walked through the calendar with principals this morning and gave them a one-pager explaining all that information so that they could go back and share that with their teachers. So step 1 is in progress, and we'll continue to communicate that.
I just like this student calendar. I approve the student calendar.
If you print the student calendar in black and white, it likely wouldn't make sense, so it needs to stay in color.
I got it. I'll move it up a little bit.
All right, motion's on the floor in a second.
Real quick.
Ms. Andrews?
Real quick too, Ms. Skinner, can I make, it's not to kill on Melinda Dawn, but I will say, because I think so used to the other calendars, you would read like the fall semester and then the spring semester, my eyes when I draw to this one, automatically I want to go down with the months and not across. I know that's,
I'm down.
I know that's dumb, but I feel like when parents have gotten used to that calendar doing that for so long, I'm like, why do those days not match up? And then also in July, because those are registration days, can we not have them green? Because I think we're gonna have some parents try to bring their kids to school. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. All right.
I could see that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries for calendar 1. Next item on the agenda is discussion and action regarding proposed revision to policy 4.403, library materials upon first reading. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Wise. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hayes. Now discussion. Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah, so I've read through this thing, granted, I don't know how many times we've read through this thing over the past year, but I appreciate Ms. Hawkins and the librarian going through this. There's a couple of parts that I do have concerns about, and I guess the best way to do this would just be making a motion to amend one part of that. So I'll do that. I guess I'll make a motion to amend Sorry. I cut it. It's the part about the complaint that specifically lists board members shall not be complainants because board members are adjudicators in the process. Yeah, very good. So I just asked that we strike that line, and that's my motion. If I get a second, I'll tell you why or something.
I'll second that motion.
So, in my opinion, or the way I read the law already describes who can, at a minimum, of who can be a complainant, and that is so it provides the board the minimum definition of who the complainant can be. TCA 49-6-3803 states that the district's policy must have a process to receive and evaluate feedback from the following individuals: a student, a student's parent or guardian, or a school employee. A parent or guardian of a student has the ability to submit feedback, which means submitting a complaint, and the law does not offer any options or reasons for excluding a parent. So if a board member is also a parent, what we're basically doing is limiting that person from that right, and I don't think we have the ability to do that because the law is the law on that. I don't think a board member has any special privilege necessarily, but we do at least have the minimum there. So that's and I reached out to the TSBA and asked that question specifically just because I was concerned about us potentially violating the law and the policy by removing a board member's right as a parent to file a complaint. So.
Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, and I will agree with that. What I think is and Mr. President, I'll concur this is wrong. I think, looking at that as a parent of a student in Sumner County, if I feel like there is a material that rises to the level of it needing to be challenged, I don't know that just because I'm a board member, it should negate my ability to be able to do that as a parent. However, if it then comes to the board, I would need to recuse myself to not be able to then vote on that appeal, because I still am a parent of a student, but I would think that there would then become a conflict of interests if it came to the board for me to then vote on it as a board member. Would that?
Yes, I agree. The policy should not forbid a board member from making a complaint if that board member is a parent of a student in the school where the book is housed. I agree. And that if it's then appealed, the board member can then assess the conflict of interest policy and determine whether he or she should recuse from the vote.
Can I ask for special permission to, there's a librarian that would like to give input on that. Can I ask for special permission to allow that?
We can't allow that. We've already had the public speaking, so we passed that. We moved on.
Okay. I feel like that would be part of a conflict of interest policy, is that the complainant, if you're a complainant, then you should not then be able to vote on your own personal appeal. You would have to recuse yourself from the vote at that point. Essentially for
That's likely true. My suggestion is that when that situation arises, assess it at that time under the conflict of interest policy, as opposed to addressing it in this policy.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. I didn't see who was first, so when Mr. King turned his light off, and I'll just go that Ms. Hawkins.
Oh, okay. I think the discussion we had with the librarians was that the idea that a plaintiff cannot also be a judge in the same case. So as far as considering whether or not it's a conflict of interest, it would automatically cause a conflict of interest if the complainant is a board member and also a parent of a student of that school. Then that board member as a complainant would not be able to vote in the appeals process. I don't think it would be a determination, ask the question, do you or do you not? I think it's pretty much automatic that you can't be a plaintiff and a judge in the same case.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I'm hearing correctly, my concern with allowing a parent who is also a board member to be the complainant, yes, you have a right. However, when you accept some positions, you forfeit some of your rights. My concern is that if I file a complaint and the committee looks at it and one of the committee members says, well, my board member filed this complaint, so if my board member thinks this is a bad book, this must be a bad book. I'm concerned about, and whether you want to admit it or not, all 11 of us have influence. I'm concerned that that influence will influence a committee member's vote on that book ban or whatever. So I think it's dangerous to allow that influence to possibly affect a decision of one or more of those committee members. So as far as the amendment is concerned, because of that, I can't support it.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, sitting in this chair, I have two duties that I give equal weight to: the duty of being a father and the duty of being a school board member. And as a father, if I came across some material that one of my sons checked out and I wanted to challenge it, I feel as though I have that right. And as a school board member, I have a duty to my district to speak on their behalf. When we talk about possibly recusing ourselves from voting on an issue like this, we don't recuse ourselves if we have family members who work for the school system and we vote for the budget. We don't take a step back. By that logic, the change in this policy shouldn't even happen, because a school board member who clearly has an opinion on what the policy should read has made potential changes. So I think that's a slippery slope. I understand completely that we don't want this to get out of control, and I think, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I think that's your intent, is to try to just shore this up so that, and to quote, we don't have truckloads of challenges coming. I don't think it's been a problem so far. I don't think we've had a giant multitude of school board members challenging books every 5 minutes. But I do think that, I don't think you give up rights. I just think you gain more responsibility when you take this position. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. King?
Yeah, the law does not offer any options for excluding a parent. And I do agree with Mr. Lancaster. This language here could be perceived as restricting a parent who's a board member. And we've gotten a couple emails this past week from some folks that actually want that. They want to strip away the parental rights of board members. So I'm against that, and I'm all for striking this language. The other thing I want to point out is, what the definition of a complainant is already very rigidly defined in this previous language, and that excludes board members. But it allows for the rights of parents who are board members. And so there's really no need for this language. And I just want to highlight the language in question is there at the end of that paragraph, Sumner County school board members shall not be complainants because board members are adjudicators in the appeals process. That's the amendment, to remove that language. Is that correct?
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
I was my amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you can't take away the rights of parents, regardless if they're board members. I'm actually quite surprised that somebody's considering doing that. That's quite egregious, in my opinion. The other thing about recusing ourselves, Mr. Chairman, we are allowed to make motions and vote on them all the time. I mean, we have, Ms. Hawkins brought this policy. I assume she plans to vote on it and vote for it if it is to her liking. And so, Mr. Lacey brought a policy on door locks, and he brought the policy, and he was an adjudicator in that process, and he voted on his own policy. And so we can make motions and we can vote on them. As far as conflicts of interest, that is spelled out in our policies. I know that there is discretion given to board members on voting. And like Mr. Presnell said, that would come up at that time. I don't think we need to include language that would force board members who are parents to recuse themselves from the appeal process or from voting. I just don't think that, again, like Mr. Graham said, that opens up a whole can of worms. What other instances would we be required to recuse ourselves? And I just think that that's a slippery slope. So I do support this amendment. Like I said, it's already, the language on who can be a complainant is already rigidly defined. It excludes board members. However, it allows for parents to have their rights according to state law. And so I support the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, just I guess to jump kind of talk to Mr. Wise's comment. It's my understanding, and you guys can correct me, but when these are done, and at least when I see them, the complainant's blacked out and unknown. Is that how it is when they go to the review committee as well? Like when I see the complaint, I don't know who filed it.
It's redacted.
Redacted.
Yep.
Sorry, blacked out. That's my term. So if not, I mean, that's something maybe that we look at is whoever the challenger is when it goes to the review committee. It's just redacted, and that way you don't know if it's a board member or not. I mean, but whether that's the case or not, I think the biggest point in this is, the law sets the minimum, and we can't cut the law underneath that minimum, and that's what this would do. It's still, as a board member, I can only or as a parent, not as a board member, as a parent, I can only challenge a book at, the school that my kid's at. It's not like I've got a special privilege to go challenge a book at a school that my kid does not attend. So it's just the same right as any other. But just want to make that point.
Thank you, Mr. Lancaster. Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, just make sure we're all on the same page as far as we take this language out, that it would then read, complainant means a current SCS employee of the school where the challenged library material is physically located, a student of the school where the challenged library material is physically located, or a parent guardian of a student attending the school where the challenged library material is physically located.
That's it too.
That's the intent of your, okay, so that's what that language would then say. So that's where, you know, and I agree, as a parent, if it was something that I felt that strongly about, my first step, as a board member, my very first step is going to be, I'm going to go to that librarian and we're going to have a conversation and we're going to discuss it. And I think, you know, if after that discussion, you know, we don't see eye to eye, and I still feel like that is a material that needs to be removed, and I feel strong enough that I need to fill out, you know, a challenge on that, I'm doing that as a parent. It would then, you know, I do disagree with whether or not to recuse. I think for myself personally, and ethically, I would feel like I would need to recuse myself because I am the sole person who initiated that in a challenge. I mean, it would be very similar to, you know, if it was my student going before a disciplinary hearing. Well, I can't make that. I should not be able to be part of that decision either. But that's where I see that on that. I guess, you know, we would have to cross that bridge when we got there. Hopefully, quite frankly, that's not a bridge we ever do have to cross. But I do want to make sure that it was very clear that the language of the policy would still state that even as a board member and as a parent, it's still at only the school in which our students attend.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Ms. Hawkins.
First of all, I'm getting a message that the sound is not coming through on the live feed. Is anybody aware of that?
Can't help with that.
Okay. Policy, school board policy 1.107, number 3, says in the event a member of a local governing body of a county or municipality has a conflict of interest in a matter to be voted upon by the body, the member may abstain for cause by announcing such to the presiding officer. Any member of a local governing body of a county or municipality who abstains from voting for cause on any issue coming to a vote for the body shall not be counted for the purposes of determining a majority vote. So there is the option to abstain. And it's my understanding that conflict of interest occurs when an individual's personal interests, family, friendships, financial or social factors could compromise his or her judgment, decisions, or actions in the workplace. I just feel like that a complainant who is a board member does have a conflict of interest and would need to abstain from voting on a matter because their family is involved in that decision. And I also agree with Mr. Wise that there is a political influence there, whether you say it out loud or not. If you have staff members having to go against their board member, there is some hesitation based on pressures, job security, or having something that beyond what they feel like is the best decision may be influenced, may be tainted by the idea that the board member actually brought this complaint.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. One thing that I'll add in here, we were talking about redacting things. The principal and the librarian would know who it is on there because they fill out the form there, so they would know that. It wouldn't be redacted on that. All right.
I've got a question.
I'm sorry, Mr. King.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole host of policies or issues that subjectively someone could feel intimidated that there's a board member hovering over them or whatever. I mean, to inject that is very. That's I don't know. I think it's very subjective and it's hard to we can't define that. But what I'm saying is this issue alone is not the only situation where you could hypothetically say a person on any committee, a textbook committee, I'm feeling pressure from this board member or whatever. There could be any situation where they feel that. I don't think that should govern us making someone else's subjective feelings. We should not be establishing policy or governance on that. And I think what matters here is what the law says, and the law is pretty straight up. I mean, you cannot exclude a parent from the same rights that other parents have other parents have the right to make an appeal. And, you know, and we're talking about voting, again, it comes down to the personal discretion of the board member, whether or not they choose to do that.
Thank you, Mr. King. Anybody else? I usually don't comment on things, but I'll comment on this one. We've got two trains of thought on it. One of the first things that you learn with TSBA is they say when you're elected as a school board member, you'll never walk back in as a parent in a school again. So that comes to mind. On the other hand, I'm reluctant to take away a parent's right because they are a board member. So just a couple of thoughts as we go to vote. Are we ready to vote? No, we're not.
I'll make one more comment, just based on.
Let me get Ms. Hawkins first because she beat you to the punch.
Just barely.
Go ahead.
We represent our district, and if an appeals process involves a board member's child's school, I think that board member should abstain from voting on that issue because there is a personal conflict of interest there. But that board member has an obligation to those people who put them there, who voted to put them there. And by having to abstain from voting, they're denying that district a voice. And that's why, in my discussions with the librarians, we talked about all of this. That is why we decided that it's best that board members act as a judge in the appeals process, but not be involved in the school by school process. There's too much politics, there's too much conflict of interest, and the board member has a responsibility to their constituents at the appeals level to be able to vote and represent those people.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. King.
Yeah, I was just really hoping that it wasn't true, that the motive behind this was actually, I was hoping it was a mistake, but the more what I'm hearing is that there's really a concerted effort to strip away the parental rights of board members. I was just hoping that wasn't the case, but that seems to be what's happening.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Lacy?
How, I guess this would be for the board attorney, how would that hold up in court if you took, say, my rights away from me to challenge a book at my kid's school?
It is my opinion that this policy should not forbid a board member from making a complaint if that board member is the parent of a student in the school where the book is located. Whether there is that board member should recuse himself or herself on some future appeals process. We have two policies, 1.106 and 1.107, that would govern that.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Thank you, Mr. President. All right, we ready to vote? We'll do a roll call vote.
Yes, it's for Mr.
Yeah, so just to clarify to everybody, we are voting on the amendment. The motion is to amend to strike the line, Sumner County School Board, parentheses, board members shall not be complainants because board members are educators in the appeals process. A yes vote is a vote to amend, a no vote is a vote against the amendment. And with that, Ms. Hayes.
And the amended would read what?
The amended would remove that line, but the amended would, hang on, let me get to that.
And then you would just, the school board member would be serving as the parent.
So the amended, if you strike that line, it will say complainant means a current SCS employee of the school where the challenged library material is physically located, a student of the school where the challenged library material is physically located, or a parent guardian of a student attending the school where the challenged material is physically located. And then you would just remove that line about the board member.
Yes.
And with that, Ms. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Lancaster?
Yes.
Ms. Andrews?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins?
Based on the recommendation of our attorney, I vote yes.
Mr. Wise?
I still vote no.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Gregory?
Yes.
Mr. Lacy?
Yes.
Chairman Brewer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next item on the agenda is.
Oh, no, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just.
We just did the motion to amend. I'm ready to go home, y'all. I've been here all day. All right, we're back to the main motion now, to approve it as it was written, other than the amendment. Any discussion on that? Mr. Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a citizen reach out, and I think it's a really great question. Everywhere where it references how many days, within 3 days, within 3 days, within 14 days, is that calendar days? Is that school days? Is that business days?
Defined term. Look at the front first page. That's why it's capitalized. Capital D, days references that defined term.
Yeah, I'll just read it if the chairman will allow. It says days means regular school days identified by the annual school calendar, not to include holidays, in-service days, and weekends.
So in theory, if it was challenged, like, on May.
Because it's capitalized, everywhere there's the capital D days.
Right, but I just want to clarify, so if someone challenges a book, let's say like May 10th, it may not go to committee until the next school year, or go through the process.
I think in that case, it would depend on when it fell, but I don't believe we could ask teachers and librarians to come in after their contracted days, so we would have to, but I think we would be, regardless of policy, I think we'd be in the same kind of position, even on the old policy.
Would that then just fall under the purview of you being able to extend it? Because that language is in there as well.
I would think so, yeah, I would think so.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. King?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to strike the language under Materials Review Committee means a group of people under that paragraph. I would like to motion to strike the following, the final statement there where it says, and the option of one student at that school at the high school level with written parent guardian permission. So I move to strike that.
Motion been made to strike the lines that he just quoted, and seconded by Mr. Lacy. Discussion?
Yeah, and the reason is, you know, if you put a child on a review committee and it is determined that the material is not appropriate for the age and maturity levels of the students, what then? I mean, what do you do at that point? This committee has deliberately given material that is inappropriate to a minor, and I just see that as a major risk. You know, last year we had a review committee determine that a library material violated our obscenity policy, and our obscenity policy actually mimics the state statute on obscenity, and you know, that's a Class A misdemeanor of distributing obscene materials to a minor. And so just imagine the ramifications if a student had been sitting on that committee. And so I just think we need to get rid of this altogether. There's just too much potential risk here, in my opinion. It's very murky. And I just think adults need to be the ones making these decisions. And also, you know, we talked about, in that last discussion, about somebody influencing a decision. And I just think that if there's a student on a committee, that could influence the decision of the other members, because, you know, a member may not want to vote and say that the material is inappropriate, because they'd have to admit they just gave inappropriate material to a minor. So that could influence their decision. And I just, again, I think it convolutes the whole process. I think it's risky. I think, you know, if a student is on there and it is having this biased influence on the committee members, you know, I think that, I think that convolutes the process. This needs to be adults making these decisions. So again, I move to strike that language.
Okay, Ms. Hawkins?
Well, we had that discussion too, about the liability of a minor reading a book that's been challenged. And so that's why the librarians suggested that we put in the language with written parent guardian permission, so that there is permission from an adult who's in charge of that student. And I would ask Mr. Presnell, would that, I mean, it's a very good question, would a written permission from a parent or guardian protect this board from liability in the event that it's considered obscene?
You know, liability type questions are certainly contingent on so many facts. It's difficult to give a blanket answer, but yes, that should give some comfort that there would be no repercussions from that. But again, it would be fact specific to each one, and I can't comment on that.
Thank you.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I just want to.
Yes, I cannot give a blanket answer to that question. Each situation can be completely different, so I can't speak to any ultimate liability. What I'm suggesting is, though, is that it would be certainly less risk if a parent or guardian gives permission, written permission for that student to participate.
And this would only be a high school student. This would not be middle school or elementary.
As policies, draft policies written, yes.
Correct.
Mrs. Hawkins? Mrs. Andrews, I believe.
Yeah, I do want to point out, as Ms. Hawkins just said, that the policy does state specifically that it is at the high school level. I also want to remind members of this board that we do have students in our high schools that are 18. I will have a student next year that turns 18 in September, her senior year, that lives a lot of the school year. She's an avid reader. I don't know what particular books, I would maybe allow or not allow, but that is a point to consider. It does not say on here that it would be a freshman student. It doesn't say, what grade it is. It does say high school student specifically, and it does say with written parent guardian permission. With that, I would have to imagine, and I guess if we need to write it in here explicitly, that with written parent guardian permission, with details that are that includes the title of the book. Therefore, when the parent signs, they know the material. They can do their due diligence prior to signing to allow their student. They can do their due diligence to look and go, do I want my student to then read this book? I don't think it's a blanket like, hey, you're on this committee, because these are all developed as the appeals come in. So. If we need to include that language that says specifically with written, parent guardian permission, that includes title and author, then, if that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to do. But I do think that since it is specifically a high school level, again, we could have students that are 18 that are on that committee. They're still students.
Ms. Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm kind of torn on that too, because I certainly don't want minors having access to books that minors shouldn't have access to, and put them on the committee kind of throws them right into that fire. But I do immensely appreciate when our students come after reading a book and speak to us or send us emails, and while I don't necessarily agree with their sentiment, I agree with the fact that they're making their opinion known. I'm wondering if we can ask the author of this policy if she would consider just putting additional language in there that says high school students 18 and up, or even a step further, high school students if their parent or guardian is also on the committee.
We have a specific amendment on the floor right now, so that would be an improper motion. But also, let me remind the board members that this is first reading, so it will come back to us. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ms. Hayes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The way this reads right now, it's an option of one student at that school at the high school level. So it's an option. The principal forms this group, correct? Librarian consisting, and you can read what it says, the 5, the 7. But those who are making the decision to put that review committee together, it's an option to have one student. I would trust that you would factor in the material. I know a lot of these AP students, they're reading all kinds of work, pieces of literature. When I was in high school, which I'm not sure all of John Steinbeck's works out like it used to be, but I was a sophomore, junior, and senior in high school and reading classic literature. I think the student should have a voice at the table. If the committee, the principal, so chooses, it's an option for a student to sit on the review committee.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Mr. Lancaster?
Yes, Mr. Presnell, I'm kind of torn on this one as well. I don't, in general, have a problem, but it gets to, the what-if scenarios, and the what-if scenario that I'm thinking of is more in the line of something that would be deemed in the line of obscenity. And I know we've talked, Ms. Hawkins made the comment that, well, we've got with written parent-guardian permission, but it's my understanding that that's a criminal statute, not a civil statute, and I don't think a parent note gets us out of a criminal statute situation.
Well, criminal statute certainly is different. The policy, the board here does have an obscenity policy that mimics a statute, but it is not a statute. So,
like I say, the main concern I have is I think we just need some kind of language there that if it's anything that's in the obscene type classification, we can't have a student. We can't say, hey, we're judging this for obscenity.
if it's challenged on obscenity,
The problem-
obscenity may not even make it under this policy. It could be.
Yeah, and the problem there is we have so much where these are the obscenity policy, and this is kind of, people don't know which one to use, and they're using both, interchangeably. So that's, like I said, that's my concern on it.
Mr. Lancaster, Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm letting my grandparentness come into my thoughts here, and I in listening to all these very, very interesting comments, I can see some, I think I'm going to agree with Mr. King, I know, but I'm still going to agree with what Mr. King says. I think we were elected to make decisions for children. Now, they may be 17, 18 years old, but they are still depending on us, in this case, to put together the best policy we can. Also, I think about the possibilities of liability if we do allow for, no matter how well protected we may think we are with wording, I'm not sure that we're protected. Why take the risk is my thought. Why take the risk? I agree that I don't think we need a student on this committee. That's just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. All right. See, no other lights on? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gregory?
I don't believe any of the 11 of us want inappropriate books in our school libraries. But then it comes down to what individuals think are inappropriate. and I'm kind of torn on this student situation. I think it would, if it was a student, it need to be one that was highly had real objective thoughts within their thinking about any type of decision. But I do believe this, after a committee makes a decision, that should be the final part of it. I wish that inappropriate books never did get in our libraries. That's what I wish. But again, that comes down to individuals' thoughts and priorities about their particular beliefs. I, along with I think everyone up here, have conservative ideas. And conservative ideas are ideas that usually win out. So, I'm not sure I've answered any questions, but I've told you my opinion that after a committee makes a decision, that should be the end of what we're thinking. Because they are the professional people about books, education, priorities, and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Lacy?
I agree with District 8. I really don't think it's a good idea putting children under 18 on the committee. But if we did, I would definitely want, to have a parent's written signature to do so. And I would like for them to know exactly why the book is being challenged. But like I said, if that is the will of the board, I would hope that you would really make sure they know what their kids are examining. But like I said, I really do not think that's a good idea to put children on the review committees for sexually explicit material.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Ms. Andrews?
Yeah, so as we all know that there are, we have policies and then we also have procedures. And I had some communication that with this particularly, that when, I guess the discussion happened as far as whether or not a student would be allowed to, one, I think Ms. Hayes made a great point that the language of the policy says it has the option. It doesn't say that a student will, shall, must. It says there is an option. And it be part of the, not everything that we do necessarily has to be part of policy. It can also be part of procedure. And that the intent is that if it was a student to be a part of the review, it would be a student that had already previously checked out that book and read that book. So, and they can see that by the inventory and so forth. So if that's part of the procedure, is we're not just picking any student or, hey, they're in the library all the time or whatever, but they can go back through their history and say, oh, we have had a student read this book, and then if it's okay with that parent, to then invite them to be a part of the review process, as long as the parent has written permission and so forth.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews.
So I'm not sure if that's
Ms. Hawkins.
A suggestion of an amendment if this one fails.
I don't know necessarily that it needs to be technically maybe part of the policy, but just as part of procedure. I mean, I feel like it's as much as the procedure will be on how a administrator goes through how they pick the other people to serve. it's not like laid out that, their kid has to be a member of the school for X amount of years, or, there's some internal processes that they say, hey, so I think it could be part of more so the process than it does necessarily need to be part of policy. When it comes to how they select a student. If we want to put it in part of the policy that it has to be a option of a student at the high school that has previously checked out the book, I mean, I don't have a problem putting that in there. I just think sometimes we get really wordy in policies when it can be more of a procedure than it can be a policy.
Ms. Andrews? Ms. Hawkins?
And I understand that. And in listening to some of this discussion, I agree with part of what's being said. And if we do choose to take that out, I would be interested in having the option of one student of majority age at that school. If the board votes to remove this part of that policy, I don't know.
If we get to that point, then you can
I'm
make a
just
motion to amend the
saying that,
motion again,
putting
so.
that out there.
Okay. All right, Mr. Johnson, would you read the amended motion, please?
Absolutely. The motion is to strike the wording and the option of one student at that school, at the high school level, with written parent/guardian permission. And just remind everybody, a yes will be voting to remove this language, a no would be voting to keep it. And with that, Ms. Hayes.
No.
Mr. Lancaster.
Yes.
Ms. Andrews.
No.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins.
No.
Mr. Wise.
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
Mr. Gregory.
No.
Mr. Lacy.
Yes.
Chairman Brewer.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-4.
Motion carried, did you say?
Yes, sir.
6-4. All right. We are back to the main motion. Motion was to approve it with the two amendments. Mr. Lancaster.
Yeah, I got one more because this one's, I gotta find where I'm at in my notes. So under the appeals process, step 4, it says if it is determined by vote of the board that the challenged library material is not appropriate for the age and maturity levels of the student who have access to it, or is not suitable for and consistent with the educational mission of Sumner County Schools, then the board may vote to make the challenge material unavailable for checkout by removal or reclassification to the students at that school for whom the challenge material is considered inappropriate. My motion is to change that wording at that school.
Okay, amend the motion.
Yeah, to amend my motion is to amend that wording from at that school to any Sumner County school, and I'll explain if I get a second.
Motion been made, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. King, discussion. Mr. Lancaster?
So, yeah, this one just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me from the standpoint of, we have a book that we have all read, reviewed, and voted on through the appeal process, and we deemed as a board, as the majority of our board, say that this book is inappropriate based on the law. I don't understand how we could then say, well, it's only applies, say it came from Station Camp High School. We're going to turn around and say, but it's okay at Gallatin and Beach and White House. That just don't make sense, that we vote something that's inappropriate and then say, but it stays other places. You know, the next step in this process, from a legal standpoint, is a person can appeal it to the Tennessee Textbook Commission, and if they deem it inappropriate, it's inappropriate every library in the state. So, you know, I don't, you know, I'm fine with it if it ends at the committee level you know, being just at that school. But if it comes to the board and we vote on it and the majority of us think it's inappropriate, I have a problem saying that, you know, it's inappropriate, but it's okay over here, so.
Ms. Lancaster, Ms. Andrews?
So I don't disagree with what you're saying. However, I disagree with the wording because I agree that if it's inappropriate at station camp, high school, and we deem it, you know, inappropriate for them, then it's also inappropriate for Beach High School. However, if we say it's not appropriate for 5th grade, but we feel like it's fine for middle school and high school, I don't want to say any Sumner County school.
Yeah, the rest of that sentence would still stand. So the rest of that sentence, I'm sorry, too many papers. So the rest of that sentence would, right now it says to the students at that school for which the challenged library material is considered inappropriate.
Correct.
So this would then say to the students at any Sumner County school for whom the challenged library material is considered inappropriate. So if it's considered inappropriate at the elementary level, if we say, hey, this is only for 6th grade and above, or we say it's only inappropriate for 8th grade, that would be at any Sumner County school at 8th grade and above.
Okay. So
It's just-
similarly, if we said, I'm just trying to think how, like, so similar if we said, hey, this isn't okay for elementary school. We said,
Yeah.
hypothetically, there's a book that's not appropriate for elementary school. Currently, because the way our schools were set up, it would also, as we consider elementary school kindergarten to 5th, it would also did not be available to 5th graders at White House Middle School. Correct?
Yes.
Is that what you're
Whatever
getting at?
Whatever we're deeming it, whatever challenge level we're deeming it inappropriate at, then that would be the challenge level that it would be.
So maybe instead of
I mean, that's the-
school, then it should,
Or maybe instead of school, it says any Sumner County student for which the challenge.
Mr. Johnson has a wording suggestion.
Okay.
If you'd like to.
How about if we change it to, now I've lost, to any Sumner County school at the grade level, at that grade level is what we added, because what we had in the old policy was we had that it would be any Sumner County school at that grade level. So if you banned it in a middle school, you'd ban it at a middle school. You know, if you banned it in elementary school, it was an elementary school. If it was at a high school, it went all the way down. So I would suggest that it be any Sumner County school at that grade level.
Okay.
we say to the.
When you say a grade level, what are you, I guess the reason I'm asking that, because the book we're about
I think that's what
Grade
was
band. I'm sorry, I'm off on my instruction is at that grade band.
Reclassification is putting it into different grade level.
The reason I'm asking is the book that we're about to review, or are in the process of reviewing, specifically is for a middle school book that has been only restricted for 8th grade and above.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to, that's to me, it's, I like how it says for whom the challenged library material is considered inappropriate. You know, we've gone through that discussion before where it has to be for the whole building, but the way this new challenge has come in, it's like, well, this is restricted for 8th grade level, and I'm fine with that wording, because we have the ability to restrict it at that level, so it seems.
So what if we just removed at that school? So if it just said the students for whom the challenge library material is considered inappropriate?
The board can vote to remove or reclassify, which is to assign it to a different grade, the access of that library material to students for whom the challenged library material is considered inappropriate at that school.
Well, you're adding that at that school.
At that school, and I haven't been called on, so.
Ms. Hawkins.
this too was discussed at length with the librarians, and the concern was, and I want to make sure I understand what Mr. Lancaster is saying, that you are wanting, instead of just removing or reclassifying in that one school that's challenged, you're saying to remove or reclassify throughout the whole system where that book is available. Okay. The only problem with that, the information I received from discussion with the librarians, was that different schools have different cultures. And so we had to acknowledge that what may be appropriate for one school might be considered by the Library Review Committee of another school in a different part of the county might consider it inappropriate. So we put the language like that in order to address different cultures in different schools, and that ultimately, and if a certain book A, is challenged and then removed from Gallatin High School, but it's still in Beach and Portland High School, it can be challenged there as well. It doesn't prohibit the challenge, but it allows for cultural differences in the different schools throughout the county. And that's why we put that in there. But it does, the board can vote to remove that book from that school or reclassify it and say, no, I'm 8th grade only, 8th or up. So that is what my understanding of reclassification means, is that it can be restricted to certain, if it's an elementary school, reclassify it to middle school or that kind of thing.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Lacy?
Westmoreland found perks of the wallflower as obscene, but yet they were told to put it back on the shelf because the board found that it was not obscene. If we found that a book was inappropriate or obscene, I believe it should be removed everywhere. Because we made Westmoreland put it back on the shelf, from my understanding.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Mr. Grant?
Yeah, just to kind of go along those lines, if we as a board vote to remove a book, we've done it because we as a board have decided that it violates our policies. And so I don't understand why we would keep it at other schools in the same.
Let me interrupt you, Mr. Graham, just a second. Audience, you're whispering a little bit too loud, and you're really distracting me up here, so I'm trying to keep up with things, so we'd ask you to kind of hold it down, please. Thank you. Mr. Graham.
But in the same regard, I also agree, after we get through this, that there probably needs to be some additional language to clarify reclassification, to say that the board shall then determine at which grade levels to remove the book. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. King?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts. Talking about individual schools and that, but the school board, we represent districts, that is district-wide, and if the board makes a decision on a book, I would think that it would be representative of the entire district. If we say something's not appropriate, we're saying that for the whole district. Also, the language in the policy and in the law is age appropriateness and maturity level. And I do know that there are students in some schools that have higher maturity levels. I taught music for 4th grade at one time, and they were 4th grade, but their experience was that of probably a 10th grade. So, I understand that, but that still doesn't make it appropriate for them. And so, I don't know, this is just really getting into, if we attempt to do school by school, as a school board, I think that's just gonna murky the water. I think if we make a decision, if we vote on a book that's inappropriate, I think we're saying that as a representation of the entire county, of all schools, I think we're saying that that's inappropriate for all students.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Johnson or Dr. Langford, it appears to me that this policy is not ready to be voted on. Is there any reason why that if the board chose to, that we could defer this to the next study session? And would there be any reason why we couldn't do that?
Just to point out, your next study session is not until January, but yes, if the majority of you choose to defer it, absolutely.
Well, I'll just make that comment that this could be deferred to the January study session and more work be done on it, because it appears to me that there's so much to be discussed about.
I think we've made some.
I'll say.
All right, motion's been made to defer to the January study session.
Point of order, I think we got a motion and a second on the floor, though, don't we?
A motion to defer trumps them all.
Okay.
And there's no discussion on it, it's a straight up vote. So motion's been deferred to defer, and second by Andy Lacy, by Mr. Lacy.
Can you remind us what was the motion? It was his motion. I got you, okay.
Yeah,
Just
so
wanted to double
the
check.
motion to defer to trumps them all and no discussion on it, so straight up vote
Can
on
I
it.
ask one more question? Sorry.
We're on the motion to defer, there's no discussion, it's a straight up vote.
It's just a policy. It's like the stuff that we've already done tonight, it's okay.
It's still there,
That's
yeah.
okay.
Okay, all in favor of deferring the motion, deferring it to the January study session, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Had one no, and the rest of us were yes, so the motion carries. So that'll take care of that one. Next item on the agenda is discussion and or action regarding amendments to the general purpose budget. Is there a
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Lancaster,
Second.
second by Mr. Lacy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item, discussion and or action regarding amendments to the federal budget. Is there a motion approved? Motion approved by Mr. Lancaster, second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of study session items. Mr. Johnson, which will be our January study session. We know one
So
thing that's going to be on there.
We know one thing's going to be in our January study session. The other thing is going to be Mr. Ott and Dr. Langford are going to present our long-awaited compensation study. So
Bring a lunch for dinner.
between the two, that will probably take up most of the evening. But if anybody has anything else they'd like to see on the January study session, please send it to me. Also want to remind everybody that, hang on, let me look it up. I also want to remind everybody that our voting session in December is early, so our only meeting in December will be December 5th, and it's a voting session.
Okay.
Mr. Brewer.
Ms. Andrews.
I would just like to make the request for the study session in January, with that, for us to have the exam exemption policy if possible from principals.
My recommendation would be that we not do that because we've already got this book policy and compensation. There's no way we're going to be able to look at that in January.
If we have it in February, does that give us enough time to be able to put it within student handbooks and curriculum guides?
Well, we would never put an exam policy in the curriculum guide because then we would be paying for that curriculum. So,
But we would have it in time for them to be able to do their student. I know there's always like a lead time that they need for their student handbooks before.
Exam exemptions would always go in like student handbooks because if you put it in the curriculum guide and we have something like, the year that we had COVID that did away with DOCs or something like that, then, it limits
But doing it in February would give us enough time to also have it in there. Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda is comments from board members. Mr. Lacy, we'll start with you tonight.
Yeah, I enjoyed this actual board meeting. I kind of feel like we worked together as a board to get the best policy for our people. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Lacy. Mr. Gregory?
I thought we had a very informative meeting this afternoon, what we call a board retreat. Went through several things that was clarified. And from the sports side of the situation, we had several teams to represent our county very well. And I don't like to single out a team, well, I'm gonna single out two, that really have represented us well. One was Hendersonville High School, who didn't make it to the quarterfinals, but they lost in the last, what? Few seconds, by 4 points, to a team that may be state champions. And then Liberty Creek, second year of school, and they are in the quarterfinals. So, and we have some of our neighboring counties who are in the quarterfinals. Robertson County has a team, Macon County has a team, Smith County has a team. So, and don't want to be too negative, but Portland didn't do too well this year. But we'll be back next year, Mr. Wise.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who put together the retreat today. Not only taking out time to be here, but I know those presentations took an awful lot of time as well. And I think we all learned a lot. I know I learned a lot. The people who've been here 20 years probably already knew everything, but certainly do appreciate it. So Dr. Lingerford, if you could tell everybody thank you, I'd appreciate that.
Happy Thanksgiving to all.
I want to thank the over 15 librarians who have been meeting with me over the last 2 months in trying to put together a concise and clear roadmap for principals and librarians on how to deal with book challenges. And I really appreciate the democratic process here, and I think we had a very good, healthy conversation, and I thank you. And in the end, this board will come to an agreement and put together the policy, and I will accept that. But I want to thank everyone for your input and your careful thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I just want to, we've had a lot of talk about football recently, and we even talked about tennis courts and all these athletic facilities. But I want to talk about hockey. We've got hockey teams in our schools. Did you guys know that? My son plays hockey, and so he's on the Hendersonville JV team, and he's in 8th grade, but they allow him to play up. And he's a TW Hunter student. He's going to be going to Beach, but these are co-op teams. So it's Hendersonville, Beach, Merrill Hyde, and then you've got Station Camp and Liberty Creek as a team. And so just wanted to say that Hendersonville beat the Station Camp team on Friday, the JV team, 5-1, and I know that the varsity had a game. I don't know what the score was. I know they played recently, but anytime those two get together, it's a big rivalry. And so I just want to make everybody aware that we have hockey in our schools. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to ask everyone to continue to pray for Alice Bachman and her family with the sudden loss of her husband, Jim. Alice served so well on the school board and just a dear friend. So I just want to ask everybody to keep them in your prayers. Also want to mention, I feel like we've had a lot of productions and so forth, but beginning tomorrow, White House High School has a production of The Addams Family. It's Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Miss Stapleton does. Are you?
It's so bad.
Miss Stapleton does a great job with those performances. So if you have time, I highly recommend you checking it out. I think it's $5 at the door.
I guess, first of all, to piggyback off Ms. Hawkins, I do appreciate all the input we've gotten from librarians, and yeah, I brought 2 amendments to it, but I hope that you don't say that I think that's a bad policy. I think if overall it's got good things in it. I just had some concerns on it. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I know last week did most all of our schools, elementary and middle, had their Thanksgiving lunches, and after serving in the cafeteria for 2 days for Thanksgiving lunch, I can promise you I have a newfound respect for cafeteria workers. because that's a, you gotta be quick with mashed potatoes, I'm gonna tell you. But it's great to be able to open up our school for community families and to come in and have that time with their students and kids and grandkids and everybody come in and kind of see what the kids are doing. Outside of that, I had one other thing, and I swear I can't remember what it is now. Oh, Station Camp Band was in the, Lord, I'll forget the name of it, Grand National Competition in Indianapolis over the weekend, and they were, I think, the first Sumner County school to actually get to compete in that. So I just wanted to recognize them for that achievement. So thanks.
It has been a productive day. We've been together all day. It's been a very productive day today. Do remember the Bachmans, Precious Alice. I visited with her last night for a while, and just your prayers, she feels them, and so that strengthens her. So just be holding her close in your heart and remembering them in your prayers. Nanny Berry Elementary had their 60th birthday celebration, and it was a great day. So former educators, and I had taught at Nanny Berry back in the day, but former educators attended, and it was wonderful. The students did a great job of just touring everyone around, and it was just a great celebration. So if you'll just indulge me for just a second. Nanny Smith Berry Elementary is built on 10 acres of land, which was part of 3,140 acre land grant awarded after the Revolutionary War to Daniel Smith. He was an early surveyor who supplied the basic information for most of the early maps of Tennessee. Well, Sarah Berry, a descendant of Daniel Smith, sold the 10 acres to the Sumner County Board of Education for a nominal price of, just guess, $1. And you can find that in the Sumner County deed book at page 550. The school was named in honor of her mother, Nanny Smith Berry, who died at the age of 100, and she died in 1961. That is just a great school. The culture, the kids, just the climate of that school. It is a wonderful, wonderful school with 60 years of great history. Great students have come out of that school and great educators. I attended Pride and Prejudice at Hendersonville High School, and they did a phenomenal job. You know, I was most impressed that they had their British accent down, and this is like speaking another language. They did such a great job. So just funny story, at the end, they kiss. So if you've read Pride and Prejudice, you know, so they kiss, and I'm going, wow, that's just real believable. They're doing a great job. Well, come to find out, they're boyfriend, girlfriend. No wonder they did a great job. But the directors of our school performances, I mean, they go over and above. Well, any educator who's doing the after school, the extracurricular, they're giving so much of their time and energy. Just the production of what it takes to put that on. They do a remarkable job. And I hope that in the future that as a county that we can even have a fine arts director. We're all in line for, so Mr. Ott, if he's still here, we need the fine arts director in making that plan across the county, because well, we've had students that have gone on to do great, incredible work in their colleges and beyond, from the theater and musical theater. So just, it's always fun to be in the schools, to be present. But have a blessed Thanksgiving to each of you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. I'm going to yield my time to our director with the exception of the final word. So, Dr. Langford.
It's a dangerous move, Mr. Brewer. No, I just wanted to share one thing. On Saturday, TSBA is honoring Sumner County Schools as the top STEM district in the state of Tennessee. So Ms. Skinner and her team will receive an award at the luncheon, and then Ms. Skinner and her team will be presenting for 45 minutes to all the school boards in the state of Tennessee about the work that we've done on STEM. Mr. Brewer is moderating that conversation, and we're excited about that. It's a tremendous amount of work for our schools. A lot of them are going through reaccreditation right now, and they do a tremendous job.
Thank you, Dr. Langford. Final word, we're adjourned.